good evening, and welcome to another episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm Webbo Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line? Address it to a Let's Talk program in care of One Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Navy. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you're getting on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. Also, you can follow the live video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel, Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Tonight, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my fellow panelists, and good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. Good evening to all those who are listening to this edition of the Let's Talk show for tonight. I want to thank you, Webbo, for the invitation tonight. Let me say good evening to all those who are listening here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, those who are listening throughout the entire Caribbean basin, as far down south as Guyana, all the way up to Bahamas, Cayman, and up to Bermuda as well. Those who are listening in the North American and South American continent, over on Europe, and certainly on Asia, I believe we have a global following. So wherever they may be, we are indeed delighted to be on your job, in your homes, your car, wherever you may be. We are delighted to be with you tonight. Webbo, I want to take this opportunity to offer our condolences to all those families who are in mourning tonight. I believe that there have been a few families who continue to, at the start of this new year, experience the wrath and the reality of losing a loved one. I come to mind is our Deputy Premier, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, who would have lost his aunt last week. I certainly want to say to him and to his entire family and offer my very deepest condolences. To all those other families who are in mourning, Webbo, I want to say to them that I hope that they can remember their loved one and their colleague with fond memory as they go through this process. It's a process, and there is no template for it. There is no manual for it. It is just how one deals with it. But I hope that as they go through this process, they will remember that it's a journey. I believe that once we would have stepped out on this earth, it's certainly a part that we all would have to traverse at some point. But I want to say to all those who are in our various hospitals here in St. Kitts and Nevis who are ill, those who are seeking medical attention overseas, I hope that certainly with the help of the doctors and the nurses, that they can be up and about very quickly. And I hope that while they reflect on their illness, that they would also perhaps during this time even draw a bit closer to the equator. Well, I want to say to all those who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life, I hope that they are having a wonderful evening, and I hope that they can celebrate with I don't want to say with moderation, but with joy and attention, that they can do so and enjoy themselves as they celebrate. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I am certainly looking forward to tonight's debate. I want to say, Webbo, a very pleasant good evening to Ted Theodore Hobson, and also to Roger Fifield, I hope that they are listening, and I certainly know that this is, and when it comes to Tuesday night, that this is where their heart is at time. Well, but I also want to say a very pleasant good evening to the one and the only Flamingo, Steve Reed. Had a conversation with him there last week, and he reminded me of a few things, so I wanted to shout him out tonight and to say I hope that he's having a wonderful evening.
Conrad Naya-Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening once again to your staff here at the Powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, and to my colleague, Mr. Honorable Spencer Brand. Good evening, and to everyone joining us this evening by the various means available today. My friends near and far, people in Toronto who always tune in to this program, my brethren in Connecticut, Florida. Good evening to you guys once again, and I welcome you to this program, Webbo, as we gather once again in the name of the Lord to speak of issues affecting the people in the region, in Nevis and internationally. We hope that we can bring some clarity to the various situations that we face. And we do hope also that we ourselves will be enlightened by the knowledge that the public may exchange with us. I encourage the people to call in and to be a part of this exercise, as it is an interactive program where we both actually learn from each other. Together we have made this program a successful engagement for the last 30 plus years, and so we should continue along this path. I suppose this program have in some way shaped the political, social and economic landscape of our little island, and so with good hearts, good minds, and good conscience, I suppose we shall continue shaping the island to the positive, and that happens when we interact with each other, when we have conversation with each other, when we do not fall out with each other because we have different opinion on matters relating to the development of Nevis. Of course, yes, we are coming closer to the end of another beautiful day in the island of Nevis, and as I did last week, and I hope to be doing going forward, is to welcome everyone back home as soon as you can. Come back to the island, and let's be a part of this development process, be a part more, be more active in this endeavor, in this debate, and we realize now how drastic things have been changing throughout the world as it relates to reminding people where they are from. And I suppose when you are reminded where you're from, it immediately ring a bell as to where your commitments should lie. And then, of course, we here in this little island, we have so many people across the globe. And we are just extending an invitation, a permanent invitation to come back and to be a part of what is going on in Nevis. It is actually one of the more beautiful places in the world to be.
Most beautiful.
The most beautiful place in the world to be, certainly. And you must be here to realize that, and to be engaged in the process of and the culture and everything that makes Nevis. Sometimes the slowness, the laid backness, sometimes the personal. What can I say? And you wonder sometimes if they have something personal with me or what I say. But this is Nevis, and I love it inside out. And I'm sure we have room for everyone, and to get the equation more in the balance. It looks like, having people who have traveled abroad and having people who have not. And we can make Nevis a much better place. I definitely enjoy the political debates at times. It's a place where democracy seems to be practiced, especially during the election cycle. We don't hear much deaths, trouble, problems that derives from people going to the poll, and I hope we continue along that path. I'm very, 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 very much encouraging the people to express their views and opinion, and to just let it be that, because I get along with everyone, because we are so little in numbers. We can't afford to be divided or even further divided, and so I'm really extending that invitation to people to get along after they have expressed different views and opinion on various matters that deals with Nevis. Well, I'm so happy once again that you have extended an invitation to me to be here, and I hope I can be of some relevance this evening, and I do hope also that the debate tonight would be one that would bear fruits. The talk tonight would be one that get results, and I look forward to a healthy debate tonight, Webbo. Thank you.
So what we got?
Webbo, recently we heard of from the supervisor of election regarding the recent breach of the computers at the electoral office, and based on the supervisor of elections comments, that according to him it appears as though there has not been any quote-unquote manipulation of the voters list. Webbo, he also indicated that the breach appears to have been for, according to him, I hope I'm quoting him correctly, for some months. And at the time of his utterances, I was a little curious to know if at that point, if he had any clear indication that there was no manipulation of the voters list. I am hoping, Webbo, that while there may have been this discovery, that there would be perhaps a very comprehensive and deep dive into this incident and into this occurrence. Webbo, we are seeing that one of the main pillars of democracy is the confidence in the electoral system and the electoral process. We are seeing what is happening with our big neighbor up north, where that process now seems to be very much under threat and is being tested in various states across the United States of America. And I am hoping that while this breach has been discovered, that there is a very deep and comprehensive dive into what may have happened. I also want to say to our people, Webbo, that for true democracy to really remain strong, I believe that the general populace must and should have confidence in that process. And I think that as they pursue this breach and as they seek to understand as to how this may have happened, as they seek to try and put the necessary mechanisms in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again, that they can really get to the bottom of this, Webbo. Because I think while there is the politics and while there is the to and fro and back and forth and and all of the finger pointing and so on. I believe that if we lose confidence in our electoral process, then I think that it could be some very difficult days ahead for us. But I am waiting to see the outcome of this, and I hope that those persons who are charged with ensuring, one, that this doesn't happen again, that it does not happen again, and those who are charged with doing a deep dive and a deep investigation into this matter, that they will get really to the root of it. And I hope, Webbo, that the general public can have that confidence in the process, in the system, to know that really and truly there has not been any compromise of the process. But it's unfortunate, because I know that there are some unsavory characters continue to try and breach everything and anything that is online. I believe sometime last year there may have been some concern about financial institution here, whether there may have been breach as well, and we continue to get these nefarious characters who continue to hit away at the various systems that we depend so heavily on. So I'm just hoping, Webbo, that this can be something, a one-off incident. It troubled me that it was something, as reported, may have been breached for some months, and I'm a little curious to know what was happening all at that time. So it is something of some concern, Webbo, and I hope that they can really and truly get to the bottom of it.
Well, I wasn't aware of that at all, to be quite honest. I'm not sure where that information was directed to the public. But you have now. It's a very serious thing, and as we advance in technology, we realize we are exposed to these types of things. Maybe it was done by someone who probably have absolutely no interest in the political life of the island. I mean, the fact that there seems to be no real interference with the voters list and all that type of stuff. Usually, sometimes, it's youngsters having that ability and having that knowledge even more than we, the grown-up, who can really break their way into things. I, just like you, Mr. Brand, would hope that they can get to the bottom of this, and of course they can employ the necessary security to prevent these kind of things. I mean, it's a little island. It's with not so big a voting public, put it that way. Pen and paper can still be very functional. And so maybe what I can encourage is that we still, employ such what we call old-time approach, just to have a backup with the system, because we got too much 30,000 voters in the federation or less. I suppose we will be exposed to that kind of stuff. It happened already, so it probably can happen again. And I personally don't really feel very threatened about that going forward. But if it's something that would make us lose that confidence in the voting process, and so often people try to make you less confident in the voting process. But I still think we are on a good path as it relates to that. You make mention of our big brother. America, dying itself seems to have, the confidence in the American system. Quite recently, I've been hearing that the present president didn't win the election because he had this very intelligent person next to him. He could have manipulated the figures and sometimes it really floats above my head. But I do understand also the complexity of all this, and also the knowledge that exists today as it relates to the manipulation of numbers via the computers and so forth. I hope no one get that smart around here to really throw the process off the rail. It will be not so good, not so good. It doesn't even take that also. You know, in this democracy, I think we always say that democracy depends on good people to function, you know, the way it should function. And I think even without these smart guys who may break into the system, the computerized system, we hope that, you know, we don't come across individuals who amongst us every day in the political arena who will be swift to do that, you know, in an effort to put things the way they want it. I'm for one believe in free and fair elections. I'm for one believe in good governance. And I think that's why I'm here sometimes, and that's why sometimes I get the blame and sometimes I get persecuted and sometimes things like that. But I continue to advocate and ask for, you know, and try to establish that those pillars that would render good governance and fairness with the people. And so that would always be my call. And so I do hope, just like you, Mr. Brand, that they can get to the bottom of this situation and clear up things. Now we're dealing with the AI revolution. It's totally engulfing. It looks like we will have to align ourselves and be more knowledgeable of it. I think it's going to be it has been employed so much these days. You open your phone and you see all type of stuff. All kind of people purported to be someone else, or voices and images, and you know, it's really running very fast. And they say one way of dealing with it is to be more knowledgeable of its application and what it can do, and to be more understanding of it. I would encourage that to the fullness. Here on Nevis, I do hope also in the classrooms we are, you know, bringing the kids up to scratch with these kind of advancement in a very fast way. And we as adults, you know, we should never be limited in terms of a willingness to learn new things, and so that we ourselves cannot be tricked by the 10-year-old and the 11-year-old. And so we are dealing with things that can really breach what we consider to be safe grounds, and in discovering the loopholes in these attempts, I suppose those who may try to do things, it might even, you know, we might even find it very difficult to do that because of lack of knowledge, and so we got a long way to go, a lot of things to really learn, you know, because the advancement in the AI revolution is happening so fast. It's happening so fast. I'm not sure. We're having an election when next year, 2027. Yes.
An election is anytime.
Election is any time. Yeah, election is due sometime in 2027. Is that a federal election?
Both.
In 27?
Both.
Oh, that's pretty soon. So well. So maybe that's why we start hearing about voting lists, the word voting lists, and coming into effect today. Well, let us try and be good citizens going forward. I say no more on that matter at this point.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I want to put on the table. I picked up an article a few days ago from the Times Caribbean, attributed to Glenroy Blanchard, where he spoke about the Buckley's uprising and the decision by the federal government to ensure that as of next year, 28th of January, will be a public holiday in honor of the Buckley's uprising. I believe, based on my knowledge of history and based on what I read, this was something that occurred way back in 1935, when the sugar workers on St. Kitts, island-wide really, decided to launch an island-wide strike. And I believe, Webbo, that out of that we saw, in my mind, a complete transformation as it relates to workers' rights. I believe it was 2 or 3 persons who may have lost their life in that uprising. A number of persons were also injured. But I think that their sacrifice brought not only to St. Kitts and Nevis, but throughout the entire region, and it highlighted really the exploited condition that persons were working under. It brought into bear certain salient rights for workers. So I thought that this initiative by the federal government, and I want to congratulate the federal government for this initiative. I know that there have been many persons over the many decades have been crying out for this and trying to champion this. And I believe that this announcement is a testimony for their persistence, for their insistence that they be so recognized. And I think, Webbo, that in that era, 1935, and the powers that be then, how they responded, and in an effort to try and stifle that riot, I believe that today, almost 100 years on, is a clear indication that their fight and their struggle are being vindicated. And I believe that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can certainly, when it comes to workers' rights, when it comes to labor relations, when it comes to equity and so on in the workplace, that this uprising definitely was the foundation on which many of that stood. So I want to congratulate the federal government for signaling this going forward, effective next year. I believe that it's a tribute, Webbo, to those men and women who would have not only made the sacrifice, but who would have toiled long and hard for this to happen. So I want to say congratulations to all those who would have persisted, to all those who would have written, to all those who would have agitated, and to all those who would have, over the years, struggled for this to happen. So I just wanted to say congrats to the federal government for making this happen.
Mr. Brand, let me ask you.
Yes.
See if you can highlight something on that same topic that you introduced, the Buckley's uprising. I don't know how many people know. You have any idea of the background for it? Because a lot of people may jump up and say, "Oh, we get a holiday" and stuff like that. How many people are very conscious?
Well, maybe not as much as should be.
Okay, so now you know anything about it? Why they had a Buckley's uprising?
No, not in any depth, Webbo, to be quite honest with you.
And this is, you see, the problem. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, but the main catalyst for it had to do with the impoverished condition of the workers and the quote-unquote miserly wages, and the persons who were at that time working long and hard felt that the way in which they were treated were unjust, and the exploitation and all of that morphed into the catalyst that led to that island-wide strike and riot.
Okay, and so all of that has ceased?
In present day?
Yes.
Not entirely.
Okay.
Because there are still persons who are, in my mind, their wages sometimes I feel are not perhaps keeping up with the times. There are still situation and circumstances where persons are, the way in which you speak to people are exploited and those kind. It has not entirely gone away.
Right. So it is not necessarily for me. It might be wages.
Yes.
For somebody else, it might be something else.
Yes.
But all of it is oppression. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is Black History Month.
Yes.
As it's celebrated, especially in the United States and then
Right.
across other stuff like that. And then everybody celebrate Black history. And some people argue that even in the islands, the colonial system, though we have different colors in the authoritative position, the oppression still continues. No?
But I think that you speak about the colonial system and structure, the way in which, and we have, most of these countries have come out of this, or let me put it differently, have adopted a similar constitution where the power is placed or the influence is placed in a particular group of persons that still can use that power and that influence to oppress others. The mechanism, the structure is very much still there.
Okay, and does it still happen?
Sometimes it does.
Okay. Yes, Naya?
Yes, Webbo, the marks of colonialism remains prominent in our life all around us in a functional way. The way governments are run, the way the law is practiced, even the psychology of the people that sometimes plays out in the decision-making process.
And notwithstanding that that color and those masters are not here.
Yes.
And the system continues.
System continues.
The practice.
Practices and bearings of colonialism is deeply almost like entrenched in everything.
Is entrenched.
Yeah.
And do we, for the most part, move along merrily as if it doesn't exist?
Yes. We adapt it.
Because, I have a lot of instances where sometimes when I hear in the islands we are debating and discussing about a lot of progress we're making, and I make this argument. Sometimes I don't want to focus on the big things that they're talking about, because the people who we elect and put in certain positions most of the times don't represent us. And I would argue, if they do that, rather than continuing the oppression based on the position that they have, maybe we will do a little better as a people. And I don't think anyone wants to challenge me to give some examples.
No, Webbo.
Or you want to?
No, I'm not challenging you. I'm just. Webbo, I remember some years ago you had a campaign here, where you passionately and you very boisterously indicated that we can design the very best system and mechanism. Right? It could be perhaps the most thought out system, and if the persons who you put to implement or operate that system brings their for the want of a better word, if they bring their bad-mindedness to that good system, it is still going to fail. I am saying all of that simply to say this, Webbo, that we are here talking about the announcement of the proposed holiday starting next year, and you put on the table that the structure and the mechanism of the causes of that riot are still very much in place. I believe that over the many years and over the many decades, and Naya touched on it, that perhaps the structure is still in place. And I feel, Webbo, that perhaps based on certain circumstances, persons are still being affected by that kind of system that is affecting them. And I go back to what I said, but you were campaigning on, I think it was about a few years ago, that for us to really get past this, I believe that people need to bring the real genuine attitude and approach to whatever they seek to do. And even though that this holiday has been announced, I think that we can all agree that the core of that system perhaps still exists.
The system still exists, but you were making the point that when we were doing the campaign you said we were doing, we recognize that. But it all comes down to who a person is.
Yes.
And the human beings that's operating the system, because I have also a saying that I normally would say, life can be much easier than we make it. To tell the truth, I've had some real experiences that have shocked me. Because I've seen some people and known them before. And when I see the way they perform after they get on the other side, I got to admit, shocks me. And then is when I realize that people don't really change.
That's how they were all the time?
That's who they are. Just waiting until they get on the other side and in the position. It just happens. So it's not so much always the structure or the system, but it's who operates it. Because even in a church, you can hear the parishioners, for instance, saying, well, this pastor was real nice, and then the other pastor was not so nice. But they operate under the same system or the same structure, because some may have a more understanding and compassion with people than others. Naya, you wanted?
Well, I agree with or to join with Mr. Brand in highlighting the proposed holiday as it relates to the Buckley's uprising. I've been hearing about that long enough, and when I say I don't know much about it, because not that much to have a big explanation of the intricacies and the causes of the riots, but I could imagine it was in the 1930s. Of course, there was a global recession and depression taking place, and it can definitely be surrounding, hard times, work conditions, wages, inequality, that type of thing that was happening in a big way post slavery, and the fact that St. Kitts remain a sugar country, the plantation system continues to a great extent. I mean, just the other day, just before, they stopped producing sugar, we were bringing people from Guyana to St. Kitts to cut sugar, and when you go and see them work, to me, it brings back that reality, that even that the physicality of plantation days. And so the situation was not far removed from the days of actual slavery. And this is slavery finished 1834, and then they had an apprenticeship period for 4 years, 1838. and those islands that continue in the sugar production, they tend to continue with a lot of practices that was a part of the system prior to the abolishment of slavery. And so I'm happy it is to a great extent the work of the Rastafarians in St. Kitts. I've heard them over and over again contesting the fact that this should be a public holiday because it marks the recognition of inequality and the hardship experienced by the sugar workers, by the ex-slaves, really, and it have led to a revolution in the way governments, and I think it's out of that sprang people like even Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw, and what he represent to the people of St. Kitts, and so it's something happening in St. Kitts. Nigerians are not very much aware of it because, again, our history are not taught to us, here in the Federation from a local point of view. I mean, we know more about what went on in Jamaica and sometimes Trinidad and Guyana than what actually went on in St. Kitts, Nevis, and Antigua and Anguilla, surprisingly. And I surprisingly, because I read West Indian history and I was in Jamaica, and the things I'm talking about Jamaica, about the Mount Bay Rebellion, about Paul Bogle, about George William Garden, and all these major characters in West Indian history, the Jamaicans don't know what I'm talking about. I tell them I want to go to the place where Paul Bogle was hung. The silk cotton tree still remains, and they don't know what I'm talking about. And so, well, I must say within the circles where I was. And so the history is unless you read the history and research the history, there's quite a lot of history it happened in St. Kitts and Nevis, really. And the Buckley's Uprising is one of those almost unrooted history that we would have read or exposed to during, West Indian history classes. And so I'm happy that event, is recognized by the government. It's something that, the Rasta people have really fought for a long, long time. And I hope that its recognition can really open up a new page, and even open up the books to a lot of people who wants to read more into the history of St. Kitts Nevis, post-slavery and even during slavery, because we have not just, we just don't read much in our school days curriculum about St. Kitts Nevis history, which is the same history as Jamaica, Trinidad, and the bigger countries, but it seems that the writers of these books was for more those bigger islands, and I congratulate more the Rastafarians than anyone else, because the first set of people I hear talk about is Buckley's Uprising and standing up, for it to be recognized, as it is today, was the Rasta people, and I'm very happy that they have really got what they wanted, and I hope it's an inspiration going forward. We're talking about colonialism here. And I think, as I said, it's all around us. Sometimes I walk to Charlestown. And I said, this town is a beautiful little town, but it's outdone itself. It's time to have a new town, a modern town, because the more we try to modernize Charlestown, the more we change it from what it is, and sometimes we're trying to get World Heritage recognition, and if you try to change it, you won't get that. And you see, it's quite incapable of facilitating modern day existence, because if you stop to think, look at Charlestown, you see some little streets You wonder. I wonder where they're going to put a bus station that takes people to Gingerland. I wonder when I'm going to put a bus station that takes people to the north. And you realize we would have to do some land reclamation. That leads me into acknowledging one of the fundamental resources we have here on island, Mr. Brand, which is stones, you know.
Let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air. Yes. Good evening. Yes. You're on the air.
Right. The thing about the declaration of the holiday, it's welcome. Okay, and people say probably long overdue. What was being talked about for quite some time was actually a monument to recognize the sacrifice that they had then. What I think we can hope for is that people do in fact acknowledge that sacrifice, because it's ironic that today it comes at a time when our people may be forced to make more sacrifices in a different way. The threat, the oppressor might be different, but sacrifice is sacrifice nevertheless. Okay? And I'm not so sure that we are wired to make that sacrifice. I think over the years we have become soft, comfortable. Things have improved so much that we don't want to lose stuff now. So it's a different kind of people, I think, that we are in terms of whether or not we're supposed to make, we see the need to make sacrifices, and as such, I don't know that the holiday, just the holiday, would change that. Okay, I think it's going to take more than that. I think, as was just mentioned, we tend to blame the system, right? Because the system is so collective that nobody really is at fault for it, for what has happened, right? But in fact, there are people who operate the system. There are leaders in all walks that can make a difference. And back then there was obvious leadership. There was also obvious commitment to make sure that things were not just going to be better for now, but for future generations when they did that. I am not so sure that we have that kind of commitment now, to be quite honest with you, right? I don't think we have leaders who look beyond the next 5 years, who present the people with a vision that they can galvanize around, who will tell them the hard facts, point out the threats that we face, and say this is how we're going to have to operate going forward if we are to benefit. Okay. Unfortunately, I might be wrong, but I don't see that kind of leadership. I don't see people prepared to make that kind of sacrifice. I mean, just look at what we are falling prey to. The fact that we may lose some immigration or visa access and those kinds of things. I don't think the people in 1935, if they were presented with those kinds of choices, I think they would have continued with the uprising. Okay? Like I said, I might be wrong, but...
Carla, let me ask you a question. Do you feel that as a people we have become so comfortable, and I'm using that word guardedly, so comfortable that we are not minded or prepared to make any sacrifice anymore? I am trying to get a sense from you if you feel that I
do in fact feel that you can call it you can say it's a victim. We're a victim of our own success, or the success of our ancestors, okay, our forefathers, because the kind of comfort that we have now, that we are not prepared to sacrifice for, is because of them. A lot of the changes that has happened was because of them. We now don't seem, we're so individualistic now, and some may call it selfish. We are more prepared to say, that's for someone else to deal with. I am dealing with me. I am dealing with now. When those behind me come, they will have to paddle their own canoe, kind of thing. And I don't think that if our forefathers did that, I don't think we would be at this comfort level that we have now, that we're not prepared to lose anything. We're not prepared to make any sacrifice. And that's the thing about it is it's used against us in such obvious ways, you know. Look at Prime Minister Pierre. Look at how pathetic he looked, or dejected he looked when he was making the announcement about not being able to train in Cuba. Right? You know, you have to identify the threat and try to have workarounds it. I don't think. I think we're more inclined to give up rather than find ways to work around.
Do you feel that approach is sustainable?
Which one? Which approach?
The approach where we are perhaps maybe not be willing to make sacrifices anymore?
Well, put it this way. We are faced with the threat. And usually if people are faced with this threat, I mean, it tells the true mettle of people. Okay? You either roll over and die, or you confront it and like I said, work around, use whatever tools you may have, diplomacy, whatever. Okay? And it isn't that we, you know, what I dislike about the current situation in the Caribbean is that there doesn't seem to be any fight. You know, it's just the acceptance that, well, our big brother to the north is invincible, and we just have to go along to get along. That's the impression I'm getting. I mean, something else might come out of the meeting of the heads that we're going to have later this month here. But right now, it's gone from, maybe I would have understood in the first few months that, you know, they might not be sure of how to deal with a common threat, but there's no excuse for now. There seem to be all kinds of things trickling out, mixed messages, how different leaders going to handle a common threat. That we should not be in that situation now, to be quite honest. I don't think so. You know, you'd have thought that the nature of the threat would be such that it would inspire us, like it did the Europeans when they were confronted with Greenland, the Greenland issue. It would have inspired us to come together, hold one head, and you know, as a basic, I mean, I would think that's a basic instinct that is what we do, but apparently not, you know. That's what I think anyway. I don't know. I don't know.
Caller, I could ask you a question.
Hello?
You ever wondered when somebody, for instance, comes about and they threaten Naya as a hypothetical, and then you find Naya puts up no fight, you don't get curious and wonder why?
Well, yes, you'd wonder why.
Well, walk with me. So maybe you should apply that curiosity in the scenario that you're talking about and wondering why is it we're not putting up any fight. Maybe you should be curious and ask, I wonder why.
But didn't Pierre give the answer?
Not just Pierre alone.
No,
Not Pierre alone is everybody.
Okay, it's everybody.
Yeah,
so
because
everybody come to the same conclusion.
right. So
that
maybe walk with me. Maybe you should just get curious in the hypothetical that I put forth and say, well, we're just folding in like that. You need to tell us why. Just think about.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But what about? I mean, whereby if somebody has their foot on your throat, you could either you have a choice of if they're trying to kill you. You have a choice: get it over with quickly, or you struggle, don't you?
Yeah, but you're changing my scenario. You know, you took about a half an hour and presented yours, and I'm giving you something that you can think about, which might help you, right? In that same thing you just interject there will be a reason why they put the knife on your throat.
But you have to react one way or the other.
Yeah, but walk with me. So that maybe you can start there. So is it just because they had a knife that they put it on your throat? Or is it because you took something that belonged to them or you did something?
In this
As Edric, walk with me. As Edric Stanley would say, are you following me?
I hear you, but to me the answer is obvious.
What is the answer? The obvious answer?
You want something?
The obvious answer is that Big Brother to the North decide that they are going to control this. I wouldn't go as fast as to recolonize, but this hemisphere. They've said it straight out.
Yeah, you're not following me. You're not
You're
following.
absolutely-
Walk with me. What I want you to do, right, is not just in this very moment, but just maybe you can call that. But just consider what I just put forth. Just think through it. Okay?
All right.
Yeah, think
all
through
right.
it. Yeah.
Webbo, the question is, if we know the truth, we know the answers, why are we not doing it? Everybody's saying the same thing when they're talking about what is going on as it relates to the America pressure that's been applied to the Caribbean. And everybody is saying they have the solution, they know the solution. But why are we not doing it? Why are we not doing it? Everybody say coming together. Everybody seems to be... everything I've been hearing is being said so many times over and over again, even before the pressure is being applied. Really, you know, as it relates to... I mean, the CARICOM as initiative... to me speaks to what I'm talking about, you know, the coming together and the speaking with one voice, economic alliances, you know, we even now have a CARICOM passport and things of that sort. The reality that is taking place now, it looks like we've been pushed away. We've been pushed out of America, and so now we start thinking about what can we do if we decide to be, sustainable, closer to the word independent countries. But when I listen to the conversation from everyone seems to know, and they're almost talking the same thing, you know. But what is not happening is the practical part of it. Like working together. You know, in theory, we should be working together. There are lots of benefit from working together and speaking with one voice. In practice, we are not doing it. I want to know if we're going to start doing it now, where all this bigger various conferences taking place, and the fact that America seems to have publicly refute us, in a sense, we are now asking or making comments like nobody's going to save us. We got to save ourselves. So I am excited about what's going to be happening going forward. The truth is, as soon as the pressure is dropped, we go back to be the same people, you know, and again, you wonder what role colonialism continue to play in this divided state of affair.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. This is David Joseph. I hope you guys having a pleasant night. I'm enjoying your conversation. I just want to ask a question because I have a kind of concern, and I'm wondering if it's just me or if other people are experiencing it. I find driving at night in Levis has become very hazardous. That is, there are people who drive around at night with lights, and when you're approaching them, you absolutely can't see nothing. You just staying and trying to figure out, okay, I hope they pass fast enough so that I can see what I'm doing again. Is it just me or other people are experiencing that? That's one point. The next point Mr. Brandy, and we used to have the white lines on the side of the road. And even when we have this white light problem, we used to be able to gauge by the white lines and in the center of the road and, you know, make it true. But now I find that yes. Is there something in the pipeline for us? Should the people in line and start putting back the white lines? What we do so as to improve our night driving? Are we going to wait until there's a serious accident and then we approach it? I will listen out for you.
Okay.
Caller, thank you for that. We just recently, I think perhaps over maybe about a month, I think it was in December, when we were able to finally get our hands on our road marking machine. We have had one that has virtually passed its sell-by date. So we now have that machine in hand, and we do recognize that there is a real need to have those lines, center line and on the edge of the road remarked. So that is something that I know that we really have to get on. You spoke about drivers driving in at night. I will tell you what I often does. It is something from time to time I also do experience. What I does is to once I see a vehicle coming, I would turn off my bright light and put on my but if I realize that the oncoming traffic and does not really dim their light, I put back on my bright light and get their attention. I would flash my bright light at them and let them know that something is coming at them and turn off their bright light. So that is what I do. Sometimes it works. Sometimes they still come at you. So it is something that is my little technique driving at night, because you are correct. Sometimes they are coming at you with these very bright lights, and if you are not paying extra attention, it could really hamper your visual. That is my little technique. I don't know if it will work for everybody.
So you are a lawmaker, and that is work with me. Okay, go ahead, talk. When you're finished, let me know.
But the law is there. It's an enforcement issue. The law is there. It's an enforcement issue. Yeah, go ahead.
And the enforcement is part of the law.
Yes.
An enforcement aspect is part of the law. And the lawmakers are telling us that, giving us a technique in which to avoid something, right, which is violating the law.
But I will put it this way, right? The caller raised a particular situation, and I am saying that the law is very clear that you once you are approaching, you're really supposed to dim your light, right? If it is that it does not happen, I was saying exactly what it is that I do to counteract that. We expect from time to time that the law enforcement authority need to enforce the law that has been passed, and that is what I'm saying.
It's difficult to police that law. In a sense, it is something you can ask that the drivers ask them to comply. But I find it by nature, that type of law, it's difficult to police. I'm not sure if I can make a report of a guy who was coming towards me with his light on. I suppose for my safety, I'll take steps in terms because it's at that point you got to probably stop, pull close to the road. As you said, Mr. Brand, flash. But yeah, it does happen. It does happen, you know. It is one of the drawbacks of driving at nights. But I am searching my mind and thinking of ways that that law can be more easily enforced. It's difficult to police, you know. Make a report, take a picture of, and go down there and say, look at this. This guy's been driving towards me with the too bright light on. It's difficult, but it hurts both ways, really. It hurts both ways. So I could understand a flashing of one lights can be a reminder of the oncoming driver with his or her bright light on.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
It's a consequence of driving at night.
Yes, with regards to that particular issue, I think another technique, yes, the flashing your lights is one, but another technique is simply slow down or stop. Okay, if you can't see, it doesn't make any sense, both drivers not being able to see. Okay, and another aspect to this is that we should do better road maintenance. We tend to make sure when we have a large project like resurfacing the road and so on, we put in the reflectors and the white lines dotted and otherwise.
Caller, before we go into all that, I just wanted to mention something that I wanted to mention when Mr. Brand, was speaking. Do we know whether or not there are specifications for these vehicles with respect to the headlamps?
I don't know that they are. I know they can be adjusted, but I don't know that they are.
No, what I mean is, you think that people make vehicles and just put on any sort of lights for the headlamps that they want? For instance, if I start making vehicles and I decide, well, I'm going to make some vehicles, and the lamps that I put on will be the same lamps that they light the cricket field with.
Yes, that's a point. Because
there are a
lot of different vehicles.
Right. Work with me. So I was just trying to get the discussion in a way to understand that there are rules for these things, right? And if there are, then those people must operate within those rules. Rather than...
At what point? The manufacturers of the vehicle?
No. I think I see where Webbo is going.
Caller, go ahead. Go ahead with it.
I wanted to know. Is that
what I'm saying,
vehicles right now Okay, there are some with these what look like LEDs that are very bright, and there are others, the older vehicles, that look like incandescent stuff. And I'm saying that I don't know what the standard is, but I would think that at the manufacturing level, they would be cognizant of the fact that, you know, it's going to be used, it's going to be a vehicle that is used on roads, and there should be standards. I don't know if there's an international standard on how bright these lights should be and how they should be directed, you know. But I was saying that we tend to make sure, we tend to only pay attention to the markings on the road when it's a new project. After that, we just let them slide, you know, they become faded, and that's an issue that can cause the kind of problem that the caller before mentioned. Okay then.
Yeah, okay. Now, I wanted to say that sometimes, just like the discussion that was going on before on the other topic, and then the one before, I wanted to make the point that sometimes when you're in a discussion, it helps if you can try to understand and appreciate what the other person brings to the table. Because one of the things I was going to, the point I wanted to make when I suggested to Mr. Brand that he was a lawmaker, is that when you have things in the society that you're going on and then you realize there's certain infringes that can make life better, etc., etc., that's what the lawmakers are there for, to go in now and make a law to restrict or to improve, etc., etc. And then it has a process to get this operating, and then it's a dynamic process. If then it doesn't work or it ceases to work, then you go and you adjust it. You go in the house all the time. When I say you, I don't mean you, Mr. Brand, because people take things too personal. People go in the house all the time and they change and they amend and so on, because would have found that when you did it 5 years ago, you didn't have these difficulties or problems. Now they arise, so you must do something to mitigate. And I'm going forward, right? And a lot of things have to have the courage. Instead of only, I'm not saying that you shouldn't dodge the bright lights, etc., etc. I guarantee you that if you go to the traffic regulations, etc., etc., a lot of the things that we have in problems with, right? The laws are there, you know, to deal with them. And that's basically all I was saying. And then coming back to this thing with the Big Brother issue. Not everybody, just because they're Big Brother and they have the power, will come and trample you. Sometimes it's something that you have done that you are not saying. Not correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. A recognition of weakness. Yes. Not always something you have done, but the position you're holding, you invites that type of stuff, really. And I can understand that, you know. This guy who come want to beat up Naya, and Naya ain't do nothing about it. It's because he feel like he can do that based on something about Naya, and Naya probably know that something about himself, so he does not react.
Well, as you speak about perhaps the Big Brother and something that you may have done, and Prime Minister Pierce spoke about the Cuban doctors, and I believe that it was Prime Minister Mayor Motley who proclaimed to the world really that Barbados and perhaps many other Caribbean countries could not have survived or got through the COVID pandemic really without the Cuban doctors. I think that her argument and the point that she has been making is that why is it that, quote unquote, our big brother wants to surgically remove everything that has to do with Cuba and the involvement of Cuba throughout the rest of the region. I believe that the political construct or makeup right now in the U.S., that makeup appears to be highly anti-Cuba, and I believe that the approach continue to ensure that individual Caribbean countries are being perhaps pressured into ensuring that that relationship that we have had with Cuba is compromising somewhere. And I feel, Webbo, that presidents of the U.S. come and 4 years, if they are lucky, they get another 4-year term. I personally believe that the toying of the relationship when Obama was there, I thought that the idea was they were making some significant strides, so to speak, in terms of bringing back Cuba into the fold. Because I feel that Cuba certainly do have a lot to offer to the region. They have been exceptional when it comes around providing medical assistance and training of our medical professionals throughout the region. And added to that, if there are no challenges in terms of accessing visas to go and seek medical attention in the U.S., if that becomes a necessity, it's almost a stifling, so to speak, of perhaps the advancement in the medical area of the Caribbean region. And I think it's something that needs to be looked at very carefully and very seriously.
You're aware that some, in reference to Cuba,
Yes.
the United States put pressure on some of the islands and not others?
Yes.
You have
Yes.
any idea why?
Perhaps they are not as interwoven with Cuba as others are.
Meaning what?
They don't have the kind of relationship that another island may have with Cuba.
That's it.
Well, that's interesting question. I myself never contemplate that really. Does Jamaica under that same? It's not. Okay. All right. So it looks to me it's where the needs are high. It looks that way to me in a sense. But I think we're talking around the issue to a great extent. What will we do? What should we do? What the leaders should do is the question at stake. It's a smart question, even to you, Mr. Brand, as a lawmaker, a member of government. What do you think the leaders should do? Drop the relationship with Cuba and yield, or do otherwise?
I am not saying that that the region need to drop the relationship with Cuba. Cuba is a part of the Caribbean. Cuba is we have hurricanes that come to the Caribbean that affects us and affects Cuba. I feel that the embargo that have been placed on Cuba all of these many decades have not only have a significant impact on Cuba, but have also affected the entire Caribbean region. I feel that one of the things that we as a region perhaps will have to look at and think about strategically is that I think that almost all of these Caribbean countries have that conduit, so to speak.
Brand, let me just take this. I'll come back to you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening, Webbo. Good evening to the listening public. Well, you asked a very interesting question just a while ago. And the answer from one of the panelists threw me for a loop. I would have hoped that the Caribbean leaders in CARICOM come together and address these problems, these issues with the U.S. as one body. Instead of that, insularity continues. Keep jumping up and making the bravado statements and stuff like that. It gets everybody nowhere, which is exactly what the U.S. is preferring. That is why they're doing it. They try to pick them off one by one, and the leaders, they have the attitude of, it doesn't bother me. So the rest could go ahead. And when it come around to their doorsteps, they get picked off the same way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brand, go ahead.
That one of the challenges that we face as a region is that the United States is perhaps the main conduit, so to speak, for the Caribbean monetary transactional platform, so to speak. And I feel that oftentimes that is being used against not only the Caribbean but perhaps other developing states, where they use that authority and influence to try and pressure you into certain things. I feel that for the Caribbean and perhaps other countries to really devise and implement perhaps other mechanisms in which they can perhaps get around that. Whoever control how you trade, Naya, whoever controls how you buy and sell goods, in my mind, have a significant advantage over you, and it does not leave you with much space to do much. And I think that is where perhaps some of the Caribbean islands and other territories can feel the pinch and the squeeze at times.
Okay, so all that's being said, well, you as a government person obviously got to be very careful in what you're saying, because you want to sound politically
No, I'm just
correct, and yes, the reality is that, but what they're gonna have to come to is a decision. It involves visa restriction on the various countries. When we weigh up that as opposed to having our medical circumstance be improved by the Cubans, I mean, left, right, and center, not just in a crisis situation like the pandemic. They're here and they are advanced in the cancer research, the operating of the CT scan machine, and they are a part of our health program, our health fabric, and so we are here now contemplating giving that up as opposed to being able to our citizens get a pathway into America, because it looks like the visiting visas are not affected, but the so-called permanent visas are affected. Am I not correct? Yes. It looks to me, and you have just said something, those who have control your trade and so forth have that the heads above you. But it looks to me like we will have to make a decision if this thing holds out, because there will be no Trump change every fortnight and sometimes even a shorter time period, but if this, and we also know he's just there for a few years, I would think.
Be careful with that. Huh?
Why I say
that is because based on some of the moves that we are seeing.
Yeah, moves.
Right? We never would have thought that in 2025, in 2026, that we would have been perhaps questioning certain type of policies and actions and initiative when it comes to the United States of America. But it's happening.
Yeah, we have gotten comfortable with our inefficiency as it relates to ourselves. And what happened now, we have to be now scrambling to recollect ourselves and to do better amongst ourselves, you know, to prevent the impact of such things. Is it so? Maybe it's not a bad thing. This thing have probably, you know, kind of make us think, make us, you know, the reality we are facing now maybe is something that can be lasting as we try to adjust ourselves to the situation. It can maybe out of it come a better Caribbean, maybe a more unified Caribbean, a more resourceful Caribbean, a more educated, a more innovative Caribbean, you know. We realize we've been lacking in many of those kind of areas. I could assure you, because of these embargo, that's why Cuba developed such efficiency and independence in terms of you know, economic resilience. That's what's being used a lot these days, and so forth. You know, and we realize now we had access. We've been trading, we've been involved in, you know, economic intercourse and whatever with America, and now we find ourselves weaker, even weaker than Cuba in terms of standing up on ourselves, by ourselves, on our own, you know. And so, as for me, okay, they will have to keep their visa, you know. And I say as for me, because you guys as politicians and leading the people have different concerns and so forth and so forth. You know, Dr. Ju have you know, and everybody's half stepping about this thing. How much of you can really say what the Barbados lady is saying? Got to be tentative in saying that, I don't know, but she have made it clear, well, visa or no visa, you know. And I believe that's a step, that's the stand. Because we're asked to take a stand, to make a decision at this point, you know. Coming together, negotiating. Maybe President Trump want to see us kneel before him, collectively.
Good evening, thank you for holding. Let me just take this, I'll come back. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yeah, good night, Webbo. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm thankful. This whole topic is very troubling. I think we should be grateful for the discussion tonight and for similar discussions that have been held, because I think there is need for a lot of discussion. Yeah, a lot of people have been speaking, and most of them that are speaking have no idea what they're talking about. Sometime last year, the United States established that this part of the world belongs to them, right? They came out very clear with that. This part of the world belongs to them. And since then, you look at how the United States foreign policy has developed, how they have treated Europe, with so many millions and millions of people and resources and historical significance to the United States, to NATO. You look at how they have treated Canada, how they have treated India with millions of people. And I think a lot of us tend to feel that we are in the same boat like India and Russia and Canada and Mexico and Colombia that we have something to go to the negotiating table with. And I think that is really the big mistake that we are making. What really, when you sit down at the negotiating table, put all of the Caribbean countries together, when you go and you sit down at the negotiation table with the United States, what it is you have that they need, that they must get, that, you know, if you don't give them, the United States is going to be impacted. It's very little that you have, very little you have to go to negotiate with. And so when I hear people talking about, you know, let them keep this and let them keep that, and pay little attention to the impact of the lives of small people, how lives are going to be impacted. I mean, there should no kind of understanding of really the quagmire that we are in. And to me, we seem to have to just try to bob this thing out, try to ride out this wave. Because really, do you have the might to stand up to the United States with the ability to, in a finger, just say, well, we're cutting this and we're cutting that and we're cutting this and we're cutting that. And what we have to cut. So that's just my short comment, and I thank you for the opportunity.
I could ask you a question, caller.
Sure.
To, you know, maybe something that you can add or think about. You're speaking about might, correct?
Yes, at the moment, that's what it is.
And are you aware of the international event with Greenland and the United States?
Sure, I'm aware of that.
That's right. And that's an example of might.
Yes, it is.
And we were, some of us, including myself, almost thought that, had an idea or had a view of how that would end with Greenland and the United States, because you know which end the might was, which was on the United States side, correct?
Yes, well, it is not yet finished.
But we know at what stage it is now, though.
Yeah, we know what stage it is. Yes.
Which means that it is, the status quo has now remained. Right? Meaning
the United States, Trump is still saying that he wants Greenland.
Yeah, right.
He's going to have it.
Right. But what I mean by the status quo still remain is that yesterday Greenland was not his, and today it's still not his. You agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. And the main reason why the status quo remain was not because of the politicians or the leaders. You agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I don't agree.
Well, okay. Just,
I don't agree.
Right. Well, just hold that, and then I'll make the other point, and then see whether or not you agree.
Yes.
But it was the power of each and every citizen in Greenland.
No, I disagree with that completely.
Who stood?
No, Webbo. No.
You see what I just do, how I just operate, right?
Yeah.
You notice I give you all the time to when you're finished, and when you said that.
Sorry, my apologies. Sorry for my exuberance. My apologies.
Oh, you're exuberant.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
You can hang up and let me just make the point while you so get away from the exuberance. Okay. I'll just finish off. Right. Okay. So I was just making the point that whether the politicians, the elected leaders, had stood up or not, the ordinary people in Greenland came forward, each and single person, and they had to concede and respect that. And that is a clear example, is it not, Naya, of the power of the people. So sometimes when politicians get power, they think they're the end-all to everything. But the power actually belongs to the people. So when people keep saying, oh, well, I'm elected and therefore so-and-so be the case, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The power belongs to the people.
And the caller, he was very exuberant. But am I not correct that it was the power of the people of Greenland that came forth and said, no, this belongs to us?
Yes, they were very voiceless.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, the power of people. Yes, even in the very early days of the Ukraine war, Webbo, you realize it's the power of the people that really, dealt with that resistance. The way it was dealt with, and save Ukraine really. Everybody. And so, yes, Webbo, I think you touch on a very important point. You can't leave out the quest of the people. The leader's supposed to represent the people, but at the same time, without the people coming, following through, and even going beyond them in their defiance, they sometimes cave in.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. I'm trying to find out. I don't understand. This thing is not supposed to be a diplomatic agreement between two persons. I mean, America is demanding of all these things from these small islands. Well, what is it they say they're going to give us for what they're asking us not to do?
Caller, you're finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The thing that a point I was making earlier, right, is that one of the things that we could ask for is full disclosure. Because when you get certain information, sometimes, people like to, a lot of times people tell you you're a bright fellow, and they keep saying you're bright and then behave like you're stupid. Right? When you listen to this thing that is going on, as I said, some people's minds are curious. But the persons who are in the positions are not answering the questions for those curious minds. And a lot of people, some people pay attention more closely than others. So this thing that is going on, maybe the more information we get from both sides, it might be less complicated and puzzling for us, no?
Perhaps it would add some clarity as well.
Information such as?
But there has been a lot of chatter about the visa. Let's look at that particular matter that has been on the table. I think Naya raised it earlier about the visitor visa and the immigrant visa and all of that and so on and so forth. That has been a quote unquote perhaps a bargaining chip, so to speak, where the disruption, so to speak, of citizens of the Caribbean not having access to the possibility, or let's put differently, if the Caribbean is being discontinued from having access to the US visa, that can create some difficulty for the Caribbean. I think that has been used as a bargaining chip, because there has been some pronunciation about some countries, a list of countries were published that they would not be in granting these visas. So that creates a sense of fear and panic throughout the entire region. That has been used in my mind as a bargaining chip. against some of the Caribbean countries when it comes to Cuba, in terms of some of these countries still having access to that. The caller asked what it is that they are asking for. I think that is one of the fundamental mechanisms that has been used in a lot of these negotiations, in a lot of these conversations when it comes to Caribbean countries.
What mechanism?
Quote unquote, the access, granting, denial of these visas.
Right. So they hold off on the visas, and that's a bargaining chip for the United States. That's what you're saying?
They basically use that and wave that over somebody's head.
Right. And so why do they waive it? That's what we want to find out.
Because
why are they waiving it?
Because a lot of Caribbean citizens want to go to the United States, want to live in the United States, and so on and so forth.
So that's the reason why?
If that's the reason why they...
Yeah, that they stop it?
Not necessarily. The United States engage in an entire operation in the Caribbean Sea about the matter of illicit contraband stuff and so on and so forth, and then you get the full picture. There are a lot of moving parts. Webbo.
The United States.
The only thing I would like to say, is that a lot of the times you would see a politician or hear a politician in government, and the problems persist, and you don't hear them say anything. They lose that position, and then all of a sudden, then you now start to hear what was the reason for these things. There are reasons for these things. There are reasons. I find it very... Wouldn't you find it strange, Mr. Brand?
Yes.
You and I have been with me all these years. And then you show up on a Tuesday night and you just meet the door closed. You wouldn't find that odd?
Yeah, because the door are never closed.
Right. All these years is open.
Yes.
And then just one night you come in and you get shut out. You wouldn't find that odd?
That would be unusual.
Right. So you wouldn't wonder, I wonder what it is. And then you wouldn't begin to say, well, I haven't done it, web or anything. You wouldn't start to think?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what is curious about us. There's some of us who are not blaming here, blaming there. We just want to wonder, well, why is this thing happening? And the truth about it is, the people who represent us, they know. They're part of the discussions and the negotiations. The question is, how much are they telling us? That doesn't seem reasonable to you?
That's reasonable, but sometimes we hear some utterances and so on that comes from quote unquote our big brother, and you're trying to figure out exactly what is this all about.
Right.
I go back to the visa situation again. We all know that there are some Caribbean countries that offers this citizenship by investment mechanism. That has always been a concern for some countries, to the extent where we have lost our visa access to Canada over that matter. There have been some other countries that have expressed serious concerns about that particular program.
Okay.
All of those, Webbo, are things that one can put in the mix and with the
okay, so are you saying now that is one of the reasons?
It could be.
But we don't know.
I have not had or seen any information to say that has been one. But it has always been expressed. Concerns have always been expressed over that program.
Concerned by who?
A lot of countries.
Right.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. So, and we don't know They haven't told us that we have this CBI program where etc., and that is a reason why, and give the explanation and the details. We don't know that. We don't know if that is so.
I don't have that knowledge and that information.
Okay. You think that some of the persons who are in the requisite positions know whether or not it is so?
I would assume so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that is what I'm saying, Mr. Brand. So if these are some of the factors, then you think that the populace should know?
Absolutely.
Okay, but we don't seem to know or been told, correct?
Not entirely. It doesn't.
Okay, and so if, let's just say hypothetically, so if that is one of the things that is bothering me, because your activity in that is affecting me, and then I decide, well, okay, this is the sanction I'm going to put on you. Now you will decide whether or not, okay, well, if that's hurting you, I'm not changing over here, so I do what I have to do. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that can well be one of the situations that going on. And then if it is one of the situations that going on, then we must also put that in the table and say, listen to this. The United States, hypothetically, do not want us to sell passports in that magnitude because those people are also getting access to the United States.
Right.
Right? And then, so you must say that. And then you must let the public know, and so they can make decisions as well. Because remember, we are bright, you know. You all always say it. Correct?
Yes.
So, trust us with it. No?
No, you're right. You're correct.
Okay.
The source of the curiosity, I suppose it's a fact-finding mission. It all ties in. So basically, what you're insinuating, what the host is insinuating, that if it wasn't for Cuba, or if it was not about Cuba, it would have been about something else.
I would think that sometimes you can draw that kind of conclusion.
Okay, all right.
Listen, I have said that I looked at Cuba as, in my mind, a valued asset for the Caribbean. And let's not sugarcoat it. Cuba have done some remarkable things when it comes to the as it relates to medicine and the medical field.
Yeah.
The Caribbean have benefited from that significantly. We have had Cuban doctors, we have had nurses. I mean, you name it. Throughout the entire Caribbean, we have. I believe that our present Prime Minister was actually
Educated there. Yeah.
trained in Cuba, and one of the former Prime Ministers was trained in Cuba. We have some of our best engineers and would have trained in Cuba. So they would have been able to provide for the Caribbean a kind of conduit, so to speak, for uplifting the Caribbean people at a much cheaper cost than perhaps some other places. And the Caribbean have benefited. It now appears that the thinking is that the Caribbean are to either give up all of that, or if you fail to, then you might have to lose access, or I think Webbo used the word sanction and all of that and so on and so forth tonight. So it's a balancing act, and I think that the Caribbean countries, based on their very geographical location, is important, or the United States is very important to us. And perhaps we think that we are also important to the Caribbean, because some people would call us the third border to the US. Right? Webbo said earlier that United States have taken an approach, and he's correct, that this region, quote unquote, belongs to us. We control this region. So I think all
No,
of that.
correction. I didn't say
You
that.
didn't say that. The caller said that.
So sorry, it was
Hello. I never said those words, according to a famous politician.
Thank you for the
but there's a
correction.
fact I didn't say that.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
You're correct. The caller would
caller
have
said
said that. So I think all of that right now are brewing, so to speak, to bring about some. The other thing that I think that a lot of these Caribbean countries are now faced with is the accommodation of exportees, so to speak, to some of these countries. And that is another thing that is on the table that have been asked of some of these countries.
CARICOM nationals, deported CARICOM nationals. That's what you're talking about, right? Yes?
It appears to be even more than CARICOM nationals.
Well, that's something, you know, worthwhile consideration, because as far as I check, why not to their own CARICOM country? Have you asked yourself that question? And last week I said it's like the cheapest and quickest, the shortest island they probably would be dumped into.
Sorry, what's that?
Why not the CARICOM nationals go back to the deport CARICOM nationals go back to their country of origin if they are from a CARICOM country? Why other CARICOM countries?
That may be the smartest thing to do. Back to your home.
Yeah, that would be the smartest thing to do. But would that be the more convenient thing to do as it relates to America dropping them somewhere? Because I'm thinking in my little ways that, I mean, they're probably the shortest flight, the cheapest way of getting them out to the closest CARICOM country, to America. They dump them all there. And then we say not Haitians, no Haitians, and that really is almost unforgiving in a sense. I was reminded just recently that out of all the colonized countries that's been colonized by Europe in the world, not just the Caribbean, but also Africa, Haiti was the first to get their independence.
Yes, we know that. And perhaps that's why they are still being punished, maybe. Because they were of that mindset to be an independent nation from very early.
I find that's a deep and a huge root and tree in our history that we should really respect and honor. And so the idea when they say no Haitians, are we not really promulgating something that we shouldn't? We should really embrace them.
One people.
Have the last word then.
Webbo, I think that tonight we have had a very wide way of topic, interesting conversations as it relates to some of the things that are happening not only in our region but on the global stage. And I think that as a region, Webbo, that perhaps I think Naya may have alluded to it and earlier, that we now basically need to be able to look within our own sphere, so to speak, to try and see how best we can chart a course, so to speak, for our own survival.
This program repeats tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Join Keith Scarborough at 8 o'clock on Thursday evening for Government at Work. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the News Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertiser.